When Jose Mourinho was presented as the new Fenerbahce coach, tens of thousands of fans filled the club stadium in Istanbul with songs and flares. And as the smoke swirled, the crowd chanted, "Together, Jose, we will Galatasaray." This was a reference to Fenerbahce's hated city rivals, who'd just beaten them to the title in the final game of the previous season. Fenerbahce themselves have not won a title in a decade, and Mourinho is there to try to change that. But he's joining the club at a time of great unrest, a time when, in the eyes of some fans, there is a pervasive conspiracy working against them. Fenerbahce is one of Turkey's so-called Big Three Istanbul clubs, alongside Galatasaray and Besiktas. Between them, their support dominates the country of 85 million people, and the teams have won 59 of the Super League's 68 championships to date. But Galatasaray have won back-to-back titles, with Fenerbahce finishing second 3 seasons in a row. And so the club's super-rich president, Ali Koç, pulled off arguably the biggest signing in the history of Turkish football. But beyond that, Koç and the Fenerbahce faithful believe that this isn't just bad luck and poor play that's resulted in 10 years in the wilderness, but rather a 2 decades-long conspiracy against the club waged by everyone from politicians, the Football Federation, a shadowy religious cleric, and even foreign broadcasters. This conspiracy apparently runs so deep that earlier this year, Ali Koç threatened to pull Fenerbahce out of the league altogether. And it's a conspiracy that Mourinho, they believe, is about to smash wide open. Fenerbahce was formed in 1907 by 4 local men who had to keep their project secret from the authorities. The Sultan, Abdülhamid II, the last to rule the Ottoman Empire, feared football and its power to organise and bring large groups of young men together. But the game grew anyway. Fenerbahce won the very first Super League in 1959 and enjoyed periods of dominance, especially at the start of the 21st century. But in 2011, a match-fixing scandal rocked the country. Fenerbahce, along with Besiktas and a few other clubs, were accused of paying money to fix results when they narrowly won the 2010-2011 title after finishing on the same points as Trabzonspor. As a result, they were banned from European competition for 2 seasons. Trabzonspor were awarded their place in the Champions League, but not the league title, creating bad blood between the 2 sides. Such was the anger that a Trabzonspor fan visited Fenerbahce's museum, smashed the trophy cabinet with his head, and stole the 2010-2011 championship trophy as compensation, shouting, "We've been waiting for this trophy for many years." Security caught him as he was leaving. Several officials were tried and convicted, including Fenerbahce's president at the time, Aziz Yildirim, who was also handed a 6-year jail sentence. But there was one problem. It wasn't true. In 2016, a coup almost toppled President Recep Tayyip Erdogan from power. He narrowly survived, but blame for the coup fell on a former ally of the president, Islamic cleric Fethullah Gulen. He was accused by the government of filling every level of the state, military and bureaucracy, with Islamist supporters, or Gulenists, that had created a parallel state. Post-coup attempt, those with ties to what was now dubbed FETO, the Fethullah terrorist organization, were purged. Tens of thousands were arrested. Gulen himself denies that he helped organize a coup, and he now lives in exile in the US. But the match-fixing trials were all led by prosecutors later accused of being Gulenists. After the coup, an Istanbul prosecutor's indictment outlined how the 2011 match-fixing charges were a FETO plot to seize the club. Ali Koç was elected Fenerbahce president in 2018, and Yildirim, who spent a year in prison, and the rest of those accused were finally cleared of any wrongdoing in 2020. In 2021, a media executive and a former police chief were handed prison sentences totaling 4,000 years for their role in the plot. But the incident left Fenerbahce's fans and officials paranoid. Anti-Fenerbahce conspiracies were everywhere. In 2015, the club's team bus was shot at after a game as the players travelled to the airport in Trabzon. The crime remains unsolved. And then there was the feud with beIN Sport. Fenerbahce believed that the broadcaster had an agenda against the club, manipulating VAR and choosing camera angles that made their players look bad, due to their belief that beIN was being run by prominent Galatasaray fans. When crowd noise had to be piped into the stadium during the pandemic, an offensive chant against Fenerbahce could be heard, further proof the club felt of beIN's bias against them. And according to the New York Times, beIN's apology made things worse. The statement was released at 19:05, or 5 minutes past 7. 1905 is the year their rivals Galatasaray was founded. Subsequently, the club waged a campaign against the broadcaster, banning them from press conferences, starting a social media campaign with the hashtag #BeFair, and making their players wear the phrase on their training shirts. And then came a tumultuous 2023-24 season. The league was suspended after referee Halil Umut was attacked on the pitch by Ankaragücü's president. Fenerbahce and Galatasaray refused to play the Super Cup final in Riyadh after the Saudis initially refused to allow them to play the national anthem. The replay in Turkey was abandoned after Fenerbahce walked off the pitch shortly after Galatasaray had scored. In March, Fenerbahce's players were attacked on the pitch by Trabzonspor ultras after they scored a last-minute winner. But it was Fenerbahce's players who were charged by the TFF for fighting back against the fans. So Koç declared that Fenerbahce would withdraw from the league altogether. In the end, an extraordinary General Assembly was held, and 23,000 members voted to stay. In a statement, Fenerbahce declared, "For the past 20 years, Fenerbahce Sports Club has been fighting against an unjust football system in Turkey. The Fenerbahce community continues to demonstrate a stance against the unfair system in Turkish football through both sporting and legal means." And the loss of the 23-24 title to Galatasaray was the last straw. Ali Koç, who was up for re-election as the club's president against the now cleared Aziz Yildirim, announced Mourinho's signing, setting up what is likely to be a rambunctious 24-25 Super League season. And at Mourinho's unveiling, as the crowd chanted his name and a further 250,000 fans watched the show live on YouTube, he declared, "From the moment I signed my contract, your dreams are now my dreams." Koç walked Jose around the stadium and promptly won re-election. Mourinho has himself dabbled in several conspiracy theories and controversies over the years, accusing broadcasters, ex-players, federations and opponents of organised manipulation. So, Mourinho, Koç and Fenerbahce are likely a match made in heaven. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including David Ornstein, Daniel Taylor, Ollie Kay, Amy Lawrence and Rafa Honigstein. With the latest transfer news and insight on every Premier League football story that matters, theathletic.com puts you inside football. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.